The Grand Assembly Hall of the Zephyrian Empire stretched across 3 kilometers of polished obsidian, its crystalline walls reflecting the amber light of distant stars. Emperor Vexton the Magnificent sat upon his throne of carved meteor stone, his 4 arms adorned with rings of power, each one worth more than most planets' annual output. Before him knelt the greatest linguistic scholars of 17 different species, their heads bowed in defeat. "Impossible," whispered Dr. Kiltara, the Centaurian language expert whose neural implants could process 847 different communication systems simultaneously. The symbols, they shift meaning based on context in ways that defy all known linguistic principles. The artifact in question lay on a pedestal of pure platinum, a simple metal tablet, no larger than a human palm, covered in strange markings that seemed to dance and shimmer when observed directly. It had been discovered in the ruins of an ancient civilization on the edge of the galaxy, and every attempt to decipher it had failed spectacularly. Emperor Vexton's laughter boomed through the hall, a sound like grinding mountains. "Behold, the limits of your vaunted intellects. I have gathered the finest minds in the known universe, offered them riches beyond imagination, and yet this simple tablet mocks us all." His golden eyes gleamed with cruel amusement. "Very well. Then I'll give all my gold, my entire treasury, to whoever can translate this cursed thing." The assembled scholars exchanged nervous glances. The Emperor's treasury was legendary enough wealth to purchase entire star systems. But if the greatest minds in the galaxy couldn't crack this code, what hope did anyone else have? From the shadows near the service entrance, a quiet voice spoke up. "Mind if I take a look?" Every head in the massive hall turned toward the sound. There, still holding a plasma mop and wearing the drab-gray uniform of the palace maintenance staff, stood a human. He was unremarkable in every way, medium height, brown hair showing the first streaks of gray, with the weathered hands of someone who had spent decades in manual labor. The Emperor's 4 eyes narrowed dangerously. "You dare interrupt this sacred assembly, Janitor?" The human, his name tag read Frank Morrison, shrugged apologetically. "Sorry, Your Majesty, couldn't help but overhear. That tablet you're all worked up about. Well, I think I might know what it says." A ripple of disbelief swept through the gathered crowd. Dr. Kiltara's tentacles quivered with indignation. "This is preposterous. If we cannot decipher it, how could a mere maintenance worker—" "Hey now," Frank said mildly, setting down his mop and approaching the pedestal. "No need to get snippy. Mind if I—" He gestured toward the tablet. Emperor Vexton leaned forward, intrigued despite himself. This human had been cleaning the palace for 3 years without incident. Perhaps. "Very well, Janitor, approach. But know that if you waste my time, you'll find yourself cleaning the fusion cores with your bare hands." Frank nodded and walked up to the artifact. The assembled scholars parted before him like he carried some sort of plague. He picked up the tablet, causing several experts to gasp in horror at such casual handling, and held it up to the light. "Yep," he said after a moment. "Thought so. This isn't some ancient alien language at all." "Impossible," Dr. Kiltara shrieked. "I've analyzed the linguistic patterns for months." Frank turned the tablet sideways and squinted at it. "Well, there's your problem right there. You've been looking at it upside down." He rotated the artifact 180 degrees and held it up. "See? It's English." Sort of. The silence in the hall was absolute. Even the Emperor seemed frozen in disbelief. "It's a really old form of English," Frank continued, seemingly oblivious to the shocked stares. "Probably from Earth's medieval period, maybe earlier. The writing style is archaic, and whoever carved this had terrible handwriting, but the message is pretty clear." Emperor Vexton found his voice. You can read it?" "Sure can. Says here, property of Brother Marcus, Monastery of St. Bartholomew. If found, please return. Reward offered." Frank looked up cheerfully. "Looks like some monk dropped his lunch tablet or something a few thousand years ago." Dr. Kyotaro's neural implants were sparking with overload. That's impossible. The linguistic matrices don't support. Ma'am, Frank interrupted gently, with all due respect, sometimes the simplest explanation is the right one. Humans have been spreading across the galaxy for longer than most folks realize. We've left stuff behind on more planets than you'd think. The Emperor stared at the human janitor for a long moment, his forearms trembling slightly. Around the hall, the greatest minds in 17 civilizations stood in stunned silence, their advanced degrees in quantum processors rendered useless by a man with a mop. You're certain? The Emperor asked quietly. Frank nodded. Absolutely. Though I gotta say, Your Majesty offering your entire treasury for this was pretty generous. Brother Marcus probably would have settled for a nice sandwich and maybe directions to the nearest monastery. Emperor Vexton, the Magnificent, ruler of 300 worlds and terror of the Outer Rim, began to laugh. Not the cruel laughter from before, but something rich and genuine. By the 7 moons of Zarian, a human janitor has accomplished what our greatest scholars could not. He stood from his throne, his robes of state rustling like stellar wind. Frank Morrison of Earth, you have earned every gram of gold in my treasury, but tell me, how did you know? Frank scratched his head, looking slightly embarrassed. Well, sir, I grew up on New Dublin Colony. My grandmother was a history professor, specialized in old Earth languages. She made me learn Latin and medieval English as a kid. Said you never know when old knowledge might come in handy. He grinned. Guess she was right. As the assembled crowd watched in amazement, the Emperor of the Zephyrian Empire bowed deeply to a human janitor. Today, we have all learned a valuable lesson about the danger of assumptions and the value of diverse perspectives. Frank picked up his mop again. Happy to help, Your Majesty. Though, if it's all the same to you, I think I'll keep my day job. These floors won't clean themselves. And so it was that the greatest archaeological mystery of the age was solved not by quantum computers or neural implants, but by a man who remembered his grandmother's lessons and never forgot that sometimes the most complex problems have the simplest solutions. The human janitor whistled softly as he returned to his work, leaving behind a hall full of scholars who would never again underestimate the species that had quietly spread across the stars, carrying their knowledge, their languages, and their unassuming determination to every corner of the galaxy.